Hey guys, I'm sitting down here prepping for my class tonight that I'm teaching, and I figured I would throw the camera on, throw the mic on, hit record, and think out loud my approach to designing a class, a jiu-jitsu class. Keep in mind, I'm coming from the background of a school teacher. I taught in public schools for almost 2 decades, specifically special education, but jokes aside, as you probably want to make some jokes, a special education teacher is really good at looking at skills across the board. And our job as a special educator is to make sure that students have the correct skills in order to participate in the general education setting. So, with that background, I want to show you and share with you how I design a class. Hopefully, this can help some coaches out there when they go to design their own classes, or just help some students out there understand what's going through a coach's mind when they're prepping for class, or even better, what a jiu-jitsu practitioner, an individual, can do to help start thinking about what are the skills they need to develop to become better at jiu-jitsu. Now, when I go about making this video and going through these things, we have two things that we're talking about here, which is the teaching methodology and the approach to actually conveying information to a student, and then the content that is being delivered. Both are equally important, but each have their own set of skills that are required to be an effective coach. You need to understand the content, and you also need to understand the how you're delivering it. You need to understand how you're going to do that. And the best way to do that is to plan. Sometimes I know many jiu-jitsu coaches out there, you kind of have a last minute, like, hey, you got to cover class. It is what it is. But when you have a consistent class, a consistency schedule, maybe you own the gym, or maybe you teach every Tuesday, Thursday, whatever it may be, and you know classes coming up, the best way to do that is planning out. Now, one last thing I'll say, and I'm sure I'll say a bunch of things in the video, this typically doesn't take this long to make the games at or make design the class at this point. And I just said games, so I gave something away. I'll talk about in a second. But I want to. I am thinking about the games today. I'm thinking about are a little bit more tricky, and I'll explain why. So I figured let me think this out loud. I'm gonna pull up a document in a second because I write my games out so I can have them during class, and I'll show you how I go about it and what, as of February 22nd, 2024, works for me. All right. And maybe in a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, this will completely change and I'll do an updated video. But as of right now, this video is based off of my current understanding of teaching jiu-jitsu and my current understanding of the grappling art of jiu-jitsu as it is. Just one last thing. You probably like already off the video. Hopefully, hopefully some of you guys will find value out of this. I have a black belt in jiu-jitsu. If you haven't seen the channel before, I have a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I have a master's degree in special education. So I am coming at this as an expert in these two separate fields and blending them together, which is teaching jiu-jitsu. Let me pull this up. Okay. Now, one thing to add is I use ecological jiu-jitsu as a framework to convey and coach and teach jiu-jitsu for my students to learn. This is popularized by Greg Souders down at Standard Jiu-Jitsu in Maryland. A lot of people have bought into this, and I highly encourage it as the way to go about designing practice. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to be designing a practice today with that methodology of teaching, or that's methodology or psychological field, however you want to describe it, as my teaching pedagogy, as my approach to conveying information. So that's a whole other thing to learn. If you don't know what that is, go check it out. Ecological dynamics, ecological jiu-jitsu. You can find out more information. So first thing I do is I've already been teaching, so I've been watching my students, obviously, and I'm trying to see where are they doing really well and where are they struggling. And because I'm new at teaching in this format, ecological dynamics, or not new, I've been doing it for about 8 months now, but relatively new in the grand scheme of learning anything, I have to be very careful about my approach. Reason being is I learned jujitsu by learning techniques. Somebody sat me down and they taught me a step-by-step process to answer a problem without really ever telling me the problem and just kind of giving me a one solution to a problem. And through this ecological dynamics and through research and science, that's been kind of proven to not be effective, not really be the way that we learn. So when I think of these games, I need to be careful that I'm not thinking about techniques, but I'm thinking about skills. Now, when I very first did this, I did think about techniques, but about literally just a month into it, I had a chance encounter with Kevon, who is a very hilarious Instagram. I don't want to call him an influencer, but he's got a great Instagram account. I'm sure you guys have seen it before, where he posts really funny jiu-jitsu related videos that he makes himself. And he also owns a gym, Bodega Jiu-Jitsu, I believe it is, in New Jersey. You guys can check him out. And I had a chance encounter with him at a really cool open mat. It was also in New Jersey. It was outdoors by, it was like BJJ by the river, put on by, but I'm gonna butcher the name. Hold on. I know the name, but Batai Jiu-Jitsu, which they're also in Jersey. Alex, my friend, runs that gym, and I saw Kevon there, and I saw that he had posted something about ecological jiu-jitsu. So I asked him like, "Hey, we just started doing this. Do you have any suggestions?" And he was an open book and put me onto a bunch of different things, which was great. But the one thing that really stuck with me is he's the one that said to me, "There's no such thing as technique." And that was kind of like, okay, I need to design these games without technique in mind. I need to think skills. What are the skills that we're doing? And in the skills that lead to the global idea of jujitsu, what are we trying to do? Which is we're trying to immobilize the human body in order to break it or strangle it. That is what we do. So all things need to lead towards that. So the skill that I'm concerned about with my students is the ability to get to a hip to shoulder connection as it leads to the armbar precursor position. So it's a lot of information right there. So I'm gonna type some of this out. And again, this is for the video and my thinking, so I want to have this on paper here. I'll show you guys what this all looks like, and then I'll show you guys what a finished product, like I'm prepping class a lot faster, what that would look like. So we're looking at the armbar precursor position, okay? And a precursor means what needs to happen that leads to an outcome, right? So what are the invariants or the things that need to happen in order to, in this case, break an arm, okay? To bend an arm, to hyperextend an arm, however you want to put it, the way it's not supposed to go. And and Greg came up with these, which are fantastic. As of February 22nd, 2004, again, this is my understanding, but we have three things that need to happen. We need an isolated arm. We need hips connected to shoulder, and we need we need to drive shoulders towards mat or just down. Drive shoulders down. Okay, so that's their shoulders. All right, so these are the three things that every single arm bar has in common. Okay? With that being said, I'm very concerned about this second piece. Now, I can put somebody in this armbar precursor, which is a good thing to do, to practice keeping the hands isolated, the arms isolated, and driving the shoulders down, maintaining the pin, and keeping their hips connected to the shoulder. That's great, and we've done that a bunch, and people are pretty good at that. However, in the adult classes, not so much the kids, but the adult classes, I haven't seen people getting into that position. I haven't seen people getting to that alignment easily. So I'm trying to think of a class game. I'm trying to design a class to help increase that skill, to have that skill emerge, and then have people start to make those connections with their hips to the shoulders. Now, this is where I need to be careful as a coach, is that obviously I learned a lot through technique, and I don't want to coach like that. So I have to think, well, what are the skills necessary to get there? What do you need to have happen to get your hips connected to somebody's shoulder? And for that to happen, my understanding right now, as I'm sitting here and thinking about this, is we need access to that by removing the arm or getting the arm out of the way. If my arm's in the way, if you can't get past my elbow, you can't get your hips to my shoulder. So the game would have to involve an underhook or an overhook or a pull or something to get the elbow out of the way of the hips. Okay, that makes sense. I think that's right. We're going to have to play the games to figure that out. But for right now, I'm going to go with that as my understanding as what leads to hip connection to the shoulder. Okay, so I'm going to move down here a little bit and start designing some games here. So I'm going to write down the overall skill. This is what I want my students to learn as the top player in class. The top player, I want us to be able to connect hips to shoulders as it leads to the isolation of arms. I think that's fine. I don't want to be too specific. I think or do I want to be specific? See, this is where it gets confusing. I think so, right? To be able to connect hips to shoulders, that leads to the isolation of arms. Yeah, I mean, that's an arm bar. That's what an arm bar is. Right. Okay. But then am I thinking about arm bar? No, I'm thinking I want us to get to this position because that can lead isolation of arms. That could lead to triangle. That can lead to head and arm chokes. That could lead to other things. So let's get to this alignment. We're working on as it leads to the isolation of arms. Yeah. Arm lock precursor alignment. Okay. Fine. That works for me. Okay, so that's the skill. And this is crucial that you understand what you want people to learn throughout class. Okay? Having a skill or an objective, a learning objective for the students, a student learning objective, is crucial to designing a class because if you don't have that, you're just putting stuff together, which, people will still learn, but you want to be deliberate. And it helps you reflect afterwards as a coach, like, did people learn that? Did they learn it in one class? Is this going to take more than one class? Are these games effective? Are we heading down that path? Did something else completely happen that was good or not good? Who knows? But if you don't have an objective in mind, the students don't know what they're trying to do, and you don't know what you're trying to check or to measure, right? These are all really important parts of being a good teacher or a good coach. So we have our skill. Now, this is also the cool thing about ecological jiu-jitsu is this is the top player's skill. What does the bottom player want to learn? I'm not going to go crazy about that right now because I am very focused on the top player. So I'm going to figure out the top player's goals first, and I'll incorporate the bottom player as we go, and we'll see if that emerges afterwards. And that's also okay as you design these games to come up with the skill afterwards. That's fine. Sometimes it doesn't matter the order so much. It's probably better to have the skill in mind first, but who knows? Who knows what the skill is that emerges? I know right off the top of my head is to get out of the armbar precursor, you're going to need to disconnect your shoulder and free your elbow, much like the top player needs to get access behind the elbow to the tricep in order to get the hips connected to the shoulder. Those are incompatible behaviors. Somebody can't have their hips connected to my shoulder while I free my elbow, right? They're incompatible. They can't happen at the same time, which is great because jiu-jitsu is a zero-sum game, right? That makes sense. So the bottom player's skill, so let's be specific here. Top player, and I'll refer to that as TP, to be able to connect to hips and shoulders as it leads to the isolation of arms, arm lock precursor position. Bottom player, BP. Let's just make this look nice. So the bottom player to be able to disconnect actually, I'm liking to be able to free a trapped arm, because that's going to I might have to reword that later, but I'm not going to get hung up on it now too. And that's a big thing too. Don't get hung up on it. Make a mistake, learn from it, come back later. Not a big deal. This makes sense to me right now because I'm thinking these positions might lead to other submissions and that involve the trapped arm, whether it's head and arm or whether it's an arm bar, whatever. If you free your arm, you're out of those situations. I'm also thinking about an underhook or having hips to shoulder connection. If you're able to free a trapped arm, they don't have those connections. So right now, that makes sense to me. Might change it later. We'll see. Okay. So next up, the games themselves. So the skill is here to be able to connect the hips and shoulders, at least isolation of arms, to be able to free a trapped arm. Okay, so game one, and then this is mainly how my stuff would look right here. So actually, so game one, we have the setup. Is that small? Is that good? And then we have top player, bottom player. All right. Actually, we didn't need this. All right, so the setup here. So this is basically what's the structure or the alignment that we're starting in, okay? So the first game, I want to actually just work the armbar precursor. So armbar precursor. Now, for me, I know what that means, but if I needed to, I would go and put all these things in here. Now, for teaching purposes, I would explain that. So I'm not going to write that down, but that is what you would do. The setup is the armbar precursor. So I don't just say that. I say, hey guys, we're going to work from the armbar precursor for this first game. An armbar precursor is where I'm going to be I'll have somebody sit down. It's like, okay, I'm going to sit off to the side of them. I'm going to have my hips connected to their shoulder. I'm going to have their arms isolated, and I'm going to have my legs pinning the top person and keeping them down. One leg over their head, the other leg over their chest if I can. If I can't reach, it can be glued to their shoulder as well. It could be draped across over their head as well. You find a good alignment for you depending on the size of your legs and the size of your partner. That would be the setup, and I would show it. Okay. I'm sure it's probably explained a little bit better. It gets better with time as I get better at it. So the armbar precursor, top player's goal, right? So these are it's the setup, and then what the top player needs to do and what the bottom player needs to do. So armbar precursor, top player, goal is to, or task, let me say that. Task is to keep arms isolated for as long as possible. I'm going to make this smaller. This is too big. And maintain hip to shoulder connection. So as long as you, yeah, that's fine. Well, obviously driving the shoulders down, but if they maintain hip to shoulder connection and they're isolating an arm, they're still good to go. It's fine with me. This is a I'm going to spell this wrong. Continuous. Did I spell right? Continuous game. No win for top player. Bottom player. Task is to connect your trapped arm to any part of your body and or free your elbow from the hip line. Do I like that? No. And or disconnect your shoulder from their hips as it leads to freeing your elbow from the hip line. That's my current understanding. I like that. That works for me. If you achieve the task, reset. So the bottom player can win by that. Top player cannot win, bottom player can win. Okay. So that's going to set up the class for being in the armbar precursor. Why? Okay. I like that. Okay. So that's my first game. All right. I'll run the game. I usually don't write this here, but if I'm doing a fundamental class, I'll do 3 and 3 minutes. or I'll do 6 minutes. Typically I do 10-minute games, but this is kind of more specific. So we'll do 6 minutes with rotating back and forth. Okay, that's game 1. Game 2. Now, this is setting up the armbar precursor. So they're practicing keeping the connection of the hips to the shoulders, because that's the focus of today, is to get to that position. So we want to start there so they know what they're aiming for. This is where they want to end up. I want them getting back to the armbar precursor. Okay, so now I have to think about what games can I design to help elicit that possibility, that response, however I think of it. Yeah. So the next game, they need to work on the skill of getting underneath or behind the elbow. So what I could do is design a game now where their legs aren't there yet. I could use the head and arm precursor. I can use that. So I'm going to back up here and talk about the head and arm precursor. Head and arm precursor position, or whatever. Doesn't matter. Okay, so head and arm are connected. Wedges on both sides of the head and arm. It can be your head and shoulder, clasped hands, legs, etc. So lots of options there. And that's it. Yeah, head and arm connected. So head and arm connected. Obviously, I'm not going to slam into my headphones, but head and arm connected. And then you have wedges on both sides. That can come in the form of clasped hands. That can come in the form of a head and clasped hands. That can come in the form of legs for a triangle, for example. It can come in the form of your bicep. Many things you could do. Just something on both sides of the head. That's a head and arm precursor. And we'll do that from a chest-to-chest position. Okay, so I'm just going to copy and paste this and delete. Okay. All right, so now we're going to play head and arm precursor position. All right, so again, I'll explain what that is, set that up. Top player. Maintain top position and the head and arm precursor for as long as possible. Continuous game, you cannot win. Okay, simple as that. Bottom player. Slip your elbow out of the underhook. No. Free your trapped arm. So that's going back to that skill that we're on. By slipping it free from whatever is trapping it and getting it back in front of your body, and or destabilize as it leads to getting on top. Trapping it, sorry, whatever is trapping it. Okay. I would also explain what destabilizing is. I'm not going to get into that right now, but you need to define terms. Destabilizing is just you're creating movement where the top player is going to fall if they don't catch themselves, or regardless, they're not just going to magically fall, right? Unless they're having like a heart attack or something. Like nothing is just going to make them fall. Something has to influence their body to make them fall. So that's our job as the bottom player, to destabilize them, to make them unstable, to make them put their hands on the mat or put them on their butt, their back, or their hips. Something needs to happen in order to get up. If they're trying to hold you down, if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing by holding you down, you have to do something. If they're not trying to hold you down, you could probably just stand up, okay? Okay, so now what I'm picturing in my head is the next game we're going to tie these two games together, which is strong because we've played these two games. These are two games that the guys have played before. So now I'm going to jump into game 3. Comment below if you want me to go into any more information. You could break a whole thing down on this. I've actually, when I was down in, I went to go visit Greg's gym in Standard Jiu-Jitsu in Maryland. He was doing this like the whole time, and had a whole series of games off of it. It was a fantastic class. Learned a lot. Okay, I'm gonna copy and paste this, and I'm going to delete. All right, so now setup game 3. I think we start in the same position, starting in the head and arm precursor. I think we start in the same exact position because we're working on the skill of getting hips to shoulders. I don't want to increase anything else yet. I don't want to like put them back so they have to get to the armbar precursor yet, because that's another skill that they're working on. Right now, they've worked on the skill of isolating arms and keeping that armbar precursor position. They've worked on the skill of maintaining a, you know what, armbar precursor position from chest to chest with covered hips. So that's mount. I should be more specific. Okay. Starting in the head and arm precursor. I'm just going to keep this. Start head and arm precursor position from chest to chest with covered hips. Okay. All right. So now the top player's goal is going to be connect to get to hips to shoulders. You need to get behind the elbow. So while maintaining access to is it tricep exposure? I don't know if I like that, but I'm going to go with it right now. While maintaining tricep exposure. I don't like that. While maintaining, I'm going to say shoulder exposure, because that's more specific. Not that it's more specific, it's more in line with what we're trying to work on. And I don't want to add more things for them to think about, right? Like, yes, it's the tricep, but who knows? Maybe getting to somebody's arm from the back requires maintaining back exposure. I don't know. But regardless, they need shoulder exposure. So while maintaining shoulder exposure, that implies that they need to keep that underhook or whatever's the head, whatever is exposing the shoulder. While maintaining shoulder exposure, connect your hips to their shoulder as it leads to the armbar precursor position. Alignment. I'm not sure if it's alignment or position. I like alignment better. I like to, yeah. Reset on success. So that's their win condition. Yeah. All right. Bottom player, I think it's going to be the same goal as the last game. Free your trap farm from whatever's trapping it. Yeah. Because they're still working on that skill. So this is the game right here where the skill specifically is going to be worked on. We're going to keep working on it, but this is where the only new skill that they have to combine a bunch of skills. I'm not saying, you have to combine a bunch of things, but this is the game where the skill is being introduced and the skill is being worked on specifically. I think. Pretty confident that's how it is. Okay. So keep going from here. Game 4. I'm going to copy and paste this guy. So now is when I would start, basically, this is going to remain relatively the same. We're just going to change the setup and then have to add some steps in to bring in some more skills and make it a little bit more generalized so they can see the whole game of jiu-jitsu. So now we'll start with chest to chest with covered hips. via legs. You know what? Maybe I should put that here. Covered hips via legs. Covered hips via legs. Okay. Which is mount. Chest to chest with covered hips via legs, mount. With one underhook. Bottom player, palm down to give, I'm just noting this so for the video, to give them the best chance possible to succeed. All right. Okay. So now the game, I'm going to keep this, I'm going to delete it in a second, but I'm going to keep this for now. So the top player, I don't necessarily care if they get to the head and arm position, but while maintaining an underhook, I don't know if I like that because that doesn't necessarily have to be an underhook, but I'm going to go with it for now. While maintaining an underhook, top player's task is to create shoulder exposure as it leads to connecting their hips, as it leads to the arm bar precursor position. It's really important, guys, and I hope you're still watching. It's really important to be specific, but with as few words as possible. When I teach when they set up these games, my goal is to do this in like 1 minute or less, unless we're talking about some kind of concept or some kind of idea that's new for the people in the room. And that's fine. But I don't want to go too long. Like when that happens, we're looking for like 3 minutes max. Like I don't want to take a lot of time. So I want to be specific and I want them to think. I don't want to, like, what is the armbar precursor position? Okay, so those three things. Those three things need to be present. Isolated arm, hips connected to the shoulder, driving the shoulders down. They need to remember that. And I'll repeat it. Each time I'll repeat it. I'm always going to say it, but I need them to be thinking about it. That's what they're thinking about when they're rolling, right? Not a technique, but where are the alignments I want to get to? What are the things that I need to do to get there? Okay. I like this. All right, so I'm going to delete this now. Oop. I'm going to delete this. Reset on success, because that's their win condition. This, I don't think it needs to change at all. They free their trapped arm, they're out. Bottom player is good. Still working on that same skill. Game 5. Depending on the class, we're looking for... So this is kind of geared more towards a fundamental class right now. So we're looking at 5 to 6 games. And then we're rolling. We're doing regular rounds we'll probably start from one of these positions. Not probably. We will start from one of these positions. We'll start from a connected position. All right. And we're just backing up now. That's all we're doing. So chest to chest, covered hips, mount, the underhook. Okay, so now they're not going to get an underhook. That's where we're starting. So in this case, gain access. Top player's task is to get to the armbar precursor position. So that's the task. Create shoulder exposure. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I'll have to think about it. I'm going to go with it for now. I don't like it. And that's the part of teaching like this is I'm just gonna have to do it for now because it's it's fine, but I don't like it in the long run. I don't know if it's back exposure that I should be using or what, but create shoulder exposure through trapping one arm, through isolating one arm, because we're doing a mobilization and isolation. Reset on success. All right, and then this time, this is all gone because it's not there anymore. So this is destabilized as it leads to getting on top. Reset on success. Oh, and I didn't have that in the other ones. I'm just going to copy and paste that. Copy, paste, 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 and reset. Okay. Okay. Now, I probably would stop here. I'll do a game 6 just so you guys can see. I probably would stop here due to time. Not the class, mind you. We would get to rolling about here, but let's just see where it would continue. From here, I would do a half guard. Half guard. Top player has double underhooks. You can change these are like interchangeable. Like you can do, and so is that game. You could do double unders. You could do one underhook. You can do no underhooks, and the bottom player has an underhook. You could do the bottom player has a knee shield. You could do top player has access to the hips, so like via like a body lock, so surrounding the hips. You could do a bunch of different things. So that's not, yeah. And then precursor covered with hips. Underhook. So this is interchangeable too. The same thing. You could do the same thing on top for game 4. So these are interchangeable, and that's an easy way to just change up the games and add a slightly different skill development there. So top player is going to be to get to the armbar precursor position. I don't even need to include here that they need to pass because that is part of the game. So this can stay the same. Armbar precursor position. Top player's task is to first they're going to have to free their leg, is to free their trapped leg and then get to the armbar precursor position. I don't need to put this because they'll have an arm. Now this will come back because if they free their trapped arms, free both arms, free both arms. Yeah. So if they free both arms, they're out. And then I'm not going to keep going, but you could back it up to a standing engagement. So one person's belly up, one person's standing, and you could play from there. And you could just keep backing it up. And also you can run these games multiple times and just interchange the setups, just change little things here and there. But ultimately, all of these come back to the skills that we're working on here, which is the top player being able to connect their hips to the shoulders as it leads to the isolation of arms, so the arm lock precursor position, alignment, and the bottom player being able to free a trapped arm. That's what we did through the whole thing, right? That's how you design a class. Now, yeah, that's it. And now this is a lot of information, but this is what it would look like. Like I'm gonna go and I'll just use this document, but I would copy and paste this into I use my phone in class, and I put everything on Google Keep and just have all the classes ready to go. So like in between games, or like maybe when there's like a minute left, I'll just go real quick, just check what the game is, double check the win conditions, and then I'll go explain it again. Sometimes I'll do this a week out. Sometimes I'll do this the day of, depending on how my schedule is. And it's always driven by how the students are doing in class. Okay. Let me just put this there. So I'm always reflecting on what they're doing and how they're performing. Yeah, let me know. I'll make a PDF of this and put this in the description below if you guys want to try this out and use this. Again, as far as running it, depending on the class, this looks more like a fundamental class for me. So I would recommend you do the following. Now that I take this off, I'm gonna type back up. I would recommend the following. So, how to run the games. Okay, so I would do 3 and 3 minutes, meaning that you'll do 3 minutes, same person on top. Let me make this smaller. This is really big. 3 minutes, same person on top, same person on bottom. Rest 1 minute, 3 minutes, switch top and bottom. And you just run the game. So they can have success or failures or as much as you want, and you get through all the games. And then so just for game 7, quote unquote game 7, we would do the full game of JiuJitsu. So rolling to submission, starting from the mounted position. And then they would just go. Okay, and then you do as many rounds as you need to finish out the class. I would do 6-minute rounds, 6-minute rounds. 6-minute rounds, 1 minute rest. And I would finish the class out at that point. Okay, you could also do, it depends on the class. This is a fundamental type class in my opinion. So I would do the 3 minutes. You could also do 6 minutes where they're just switching on their own. If you want to have the class go a little faster, it just gauge the class. If people are like very close to getting the skill, I think that's fine. If people are like very new, 3 and 3 is good. This is also designed for, this could be a day 1 class too. If somebody's coming in for a trial, you could do this class with a trial for sure, especially because you're doing the armbar precursor and the head and arm precursor. Again, these 2 games themselves, all these games really can be broken down into many games themselves to develop these skills as well. So all of these are skills. All these bits are skills. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment below if you want to see more videos like this in the future. And thank you guys for watching. Let me know. Yeah, let me know if you like content like this. I definitely, this is something I could easily do when I'm designing my games. I could do it a little faster, obviously, if you prefer that. Let me know. All right. Have a great day.